Today is Monday, June 30th. We'll tell you about a late-night debate over what President Trump is calling his big, beautiful bill, what's been added to it, and how it could impact taxes, healthcare, and more. Also, we'll recap some of the Supreme Court's biggest decisions, from birthright citizenship to Obamacare and beyond. Plus, the track of two new tropical storms, a sudden shift in President Trump's trade talks with Canada, and another milestone donation from a billionaire who plans to eventually give most of his money away. Those stories and even more news to know coming up.
Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this.
The U.S. Senate is moving ahead with Republicans' massive budget bill. If it passes, it's set to reshape much of the federal government and American economy. On Saturday, the Senate voted 51-49 to move forward with it after days of heated debates and an accounting maneuver to upend budget rules. Basically, Republicans were able to declare that $3.8 billion in tax cuts were already extended and therefore would essentially be cost-free. After that, Democrats forced the entire 940-page bill to be read on the floor, and that process took nearly 16 hours. Then came more hours of debating. And this morning, there's the Vote-a-Rama with a marathon series of votes on amendments. Already, this bill has gone through some changes since it passed the House, but the biggest parts are the same. It extends tax cuts from the first Trump administration, boosts spending on the military and border security, and sets up savings accounts for newborns. But to pay for all that, it makes steep cuts to Medicaid and federal nutrition assistance. There's also new limits on student loans, pullbacks on climate investments, federal land sales, and more. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office put out a new analysis for the Senate version. The CBO says the bill would increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion over the next 9 years. That's a nearly $1 trillion increase over the House's version. It also found that nearly 12 million more Americans would become uninsured if the Senate bill were to become law. Now, some Republicans are disputing the estimates and the reliability of the CBO's work in general. They're also promising to get the bill to President Trump's desk by the end of the week. President Trump claimed a big victory at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices voted 6-3 to limit the authority of federal judges, saying they can't grant universal injunctions. In other words, they cannot pause President Trump's executive orders for the whole country because of lawsuits in their district. Instead, this decision means rulings should only apply to the people, organizations, or jurisdictions involved in the specific case. This comes in response to a case over birthright citizenship. As we've told you, Trump has been trying to end the tradition of automatically giving citizenship to the American-born children of undocumented immigrants and visitors. For now, the U.S. Supreme Court did not rule on the birthright issue itself. Instead, with this ruling, the High Court is basically saying Trump can go ahead with his order in the 28 states that have not challenged it, while the other 22 continue their fights in lower courts. After the High Court's ruling, immigrant rights groups decided to try a new tactic, filing a national class action lawsuit. But it's not clear what will come of it. And there are still many questions about how the dispute might play out, as well as how the ruling might affect efforts to push back on other Trump policies. By the way, there were a few other highly anticipated decisions announced at the High Court. For example, the justices decided schools must allow parents to opt their children out of classes where LGBTQ stories are taught if they want to. They also upheld part of the Affordable Care Act that says insurance companies have to offer some preventative care to patients for free. And the court allowed the Texas law that's meant to keep kids from seeing pornography online. Nearly half the states have passed similar laws that make people verify their ages to access porn. With that, the U.S. Supreme Court wrapped up its term. The next one starts in the fall. First responders were ambushed over the weekend, and now a town in northwestern Idaho is in shock and mourning. Authorities say a sniper on a mountain shot 3 firefighters as they responded to a brush fire. 2 of them died, and 1 was seriously hurt. Now officials believe the fire was set on purpose just to set them up. About 300 law enforcement officers ended up responding to this incident. They apparently got into a back-and-forth shooting with the gunman. And then last night, the suspect was found dead. So far, no word on a motive. But authorities say he acted alone, so a shelter-in-place has been lifted. There is still an active wildfire, so people in the area are being told to keep an eye out for updates on that. The Trump administration secured what some are calling the most significant victory in its effort to reshape higher education. The president of the University of Virginia, James Ryan, stepped down in the face of pressure from the White House. The Justice Department has been investigating the school's diversity practices. And the New York Times reports the DOJ offered to resolve the investigation if the president were to resign. So Ryan said he would step down rather than fight the federal government at the expense of the university community. Remember, President Trump ordered all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to be cut off nationwide. Since then, some schools have closed DEI offices, ended diversity scholarships, and have done away with diversity statements as part of the hiring process. With the University of Virginia, conservative critics accuse the school of simply renaming its DEI initiatives. So the DOJ has been investigating that school and others that have resisted the changes. Both sides of Mexico are now facing potentially dangerous storms. In the Pacific Ocean, it's Tropical Storm Flossy that's expected to become a hurricane either today or tomorrow. A tropical storm watch is in effect for Mexico's southwest coast. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic, meteorologists are keeping an eye on Tropical Depression Barry that made landfall last night. It's expected to bring up to 10 inches of rain to parts of Mexico's southeast coast. Neither storm is expected to have much impact on the U.S., but separately, strong storms across the American Midwest and East raised flooding concerns for today. And later in the week, forecasters are watching for storms that could impact the American southeast coast starting around the 4th of July. Stay tuned. More news still ahead, but first, thanks to our sponsor, Trade Coffee. For me, coffee is no longer just a drink or even a habit. It's a ritual, something that helps me take a breath in the mornings and set the right tone and get the right mindset for my day. It's a little something that feels just for me. And I love that Trade makes it even more special and delicious. In fact, Trade's experts have taste-tested thousands of coffees to curate over 450 amazing roasts. And I appreciate that I can tell them as much or as little as I want about the specifics of what I like, and either way, they'll match me with a perfect coffee. And they'll do the same for you. Plus, Trade's prices are on par with grocery store brands, so you're getting this amazing quality and supporting local roasters, and yet you're not paying extra for it. Even my husband has become a coffee fan when he didn't used to be. And right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 50% off your 1-month trial. That's half off at drinktrade.com/newsworthy. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/newsworthy for 50% off your 1-month trial. drinktrade.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Today, investors are looking to cap what's been a historic month for the stock market. On Friday, Wall Street's rally sent the S&P 500 and NASDAQ to all-time closing highs. The records came in the face of positive economic data. For example, one report found consumer sentiment has improved this month. Another found inflation is still rising, but at a slower pace than before. And the country's biggest corporations reported significant profit growth in the first quarter. Plus, analysts say investors' spirits have been lifted by a ceasefire in the Middle East that appears to be holding, at least for now. The 3-year-old war in Ukraine seems to be getting even more intense. Ukrainian officials say Russia launched its biggest aerial attack against Ukraine over the weekend. Specifically, that Russia used 537 drones and missiles to target cities all around Ukraine, even western Ukraine, far from the front line. They say some were shot down, but others ended up hitting businesses and other civilian infrastructure. Meanwhile, Russian troops are advancing, despite Ukrainian attacks against Russia's war machine. Now, Russia's government says it's ready for a fresh round of peace talks, even though the last 2 rounds ended with no significant progress. To be continued. The next deadline for countries to make trade deals with the U.S. is coming up. But now President Trump says it doesn't really matter, and that the U.S. is getting ready to send letters to hundreds of countries assigning tariff rates before next week. Trump made it clear he's not planning to extend the pause that's already been in place for nearly 90 days. So it seems there won't be any sweeping global trade reform, but there will be country-specific tariffs. Trump administration officials have said for months that talks are progressing with trade partners like India, Japan, and Vietnam, but so far, no new announcements. At this point, there's just a trade deal with the UK and a temporary truce with China. But Trump has scored some other wins in trade negotiations. Just a few days ago, the president ended all trade discussions with Canada because of its 3% digital services tax on American tech companies that was supposed to go into effect today. Then last night, Canada said it would cancel that tax in anticipation of a mutually beneficial trade agreement. To be continued. Over the weekend, about 100,000 people in Budapest defied a government ban and police orders in the name of Pride. They marched in what organizers said was the largest LGBTQ Pride event in Hungary's history, even though Pride was outlawed there earlier this year, since the country's prime minister cited a need to protect children. The government warned marchers that organizing a Pride march would be punishable by up to a year in prison, and attending could have resulted in fines of close to $600. But during the parade, police mostly watched from the sidelines. At one point, officers diverted the crowd away from a small group of counter-protesters, but they didn't seem to actually try to stop the event. One of the oldest and most prestigious events in sports is back. Wimbledon kicks off today with the biggest tennis players in the world competing to win. On the men's side, the favorites include Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. But Novak Djokovic is still a contender, going after his record 25th major title. For the women, Aryna Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, and Iga Swiatek are considered to be at the top of their field. Wimbledon is offering a record £53.5 million in total prize money this year, which translates to about $73 million. Today's first round begins at 6 a.m. Eastern, and you can watch it on ESPN. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, I want to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Hiya Health. One of the easiest and most consistent parts of my kiddo's morning routine is taking his Hiya Children's Vitamin. He loves the feeling of getting vitamins like mommy every morning, and he loves the taste too. I honestly thought the novelty of it would wear off eventually, but he's been taking these for 2 years now, and he's still loving and benefiting from both the children's vitamins and the probiotics. And I love that Hiya makes a super-powered chewable vitamin that is supporting his immune system, energy, brain function, teeth and bones, and more. And that, unlike many other children's vitamins, there's no sugar and no gummy junk. And by the way, if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website. So go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full-body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to Money Monday. Warren Buffett is giving away another $6 billion of his company's stock in what's his biggest donation in almost 2 decades. It's going to 5 charities, including 3 children's charities and 1 focused on family planning. The 5th is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which Buffett has worked closely with over the years. This brings the total he's given to charities to roughly $60 billion since 2006. Before this latest donation, Buffett's net worth was estimated to be $152 billion, making him the world's 5th richest person. Upon his death, 99.5% of his estate is destined for charity. His children share his views on addressing wealth inequalities through private philanthropy, and they've said they're honored to serve as executors of his will. Meanwhile, Warren Buffett plans to keep giving while he's still alive. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your support of the show. You can get ad-free episodes when you become a Newsworthy Insider. Start your free trial at thenewsworthy.com/insider. And Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to episodes of The Newsworthy ad-free in the Wondery app. We'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.